welcome to interactive writing or fiction writing with ink. So if you tuned in last week, you would have seen the app that I've been building, which is kind of like an interactive video game. If you've ever played the Choose Your Own Adventure book or read the Choose Your Own Adventure books, or played the old games like Zork, then you'll know very well what these are like. If this isn't the first time that you've tuned in, then I hope you will stay tuned in and just try to keep up or give me some suggestions for things that you think I could add to it. If you want to start from the beginning, you can go to the Richmond Public Library's YouTube channel, and the old videos are there, so you can learn how to use a program right from scratch. So right now, what I want to show you is what it looks like so far. So right now, this is it right here, and this is exported as an HTML, which we can then take into another program that I'll show you sort of on the last one, where it'll compile it all into an app. It can only be compiled, unfortunately, into an Android app, because that is the only thing that is free to use, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. It's free. So the first thing is we can choose our preferred pronoun. So mine are he, him. And then the story starts, and so you can see now this is you can see that the graphics actually show up. The photos that I got from Pixabay, so they're free to use. I encourage you to do the same. Don't just Google and look for photos to steal off the internet, because then you wind up taking away somebody's livelihood, which isn't cool. So here we go. We can continue, and I've added a little bit to this too, which I really want to show you because it worked and it's pretty cool. So here you're in the town. The festive light is in full swing. I'm not going to go and read this again because I've read it in past episodes, and just want to show you how this works. So right now you have two choices. You can either say I'm celebrating, just not in the mood to dress up. You say leave. That will end the game. I'd rather be adventuring for real, you tell Bailey. So let's tell Bailey we'd rather be adventuring. So Bailey, of course, is the merchant. Now you have a choice where I made a choice so you can buy the map. You don't actually have to take the map, because I thought it might actually be kind of fun if somebody doesn't buy the map, because if you buy the map, you lose gold, of course. So if you don't buy the map, you have more gold, you can buy more things. However, if you don't have the map, you'll probably get lost in the dungeon. So that gives it makes it a little bit more fun, I think. But I'm going to buy the map because I want to show you what happens when you buy the map. So there we go. I bought the map, and now you have a choice. You can buy weapons, armor, or tools, or you can leave, or you can check your inventory to see what you've got. So I'm going to check my inventory. So what I have is I have a rucksack, I have a map, and 50 gold. So if I had said no to buying the map, then a map would not be showing up right there. You're armed with fists of fury, and remember that you can kick as long as you stretch first. And you're wearing the hefty wool sweater knit by your dad. So we can change things. And here, it's really important to play through it to see what you need to change. Because one thing I noticed when I tested it out to play through it is where it says check your weapons. If I click on it, that's also where you can switch weapons. So I don't think that that's totally obvious. If it's obvious to me because I wrote it, but if I hadn't written it, then it might not be obvious. So I think that's one of the first things that I would change is when you go into seeing what kind of weapons you have, instead of it just saying look at your inventory, also look at weapons and look or switch your weapons, something like that. And actually, why don't we just do that right now? So because that's really what I like to do, is when I see something that I want to change, go in and change it right away. So here is there we go. So here is our code. This is using the app Ink, and you can find the app Ink on the Inkle website. So if you do the easiest way to find, and again, I showed how to find it and everything in the first episode, so I'm not going to go totally into detail of that. But if you just Google Ink and Inkle, you will find it pretty easily. So here, I have the whole thing of your inventory over in equipment inventory. So your first choice you can see here is check your weapons, check your armor. So instead of saying just check your weapons, I'm going to say check your weapons or switch weapon. And then it's a little bit more obvious. And then I'm actually going to copy that so that check your armor or switch armor. There we go. So that, again, it makes it a little bit more obvious. Check your magic items and tools. And you know what? Let's make this. Let's tighten this up a little bit instead of let's say check or use your magic items. Check or switch your armor. And I think that's a little bit better. I'm not repeating the word twice. Check or switch your weapon. So there we go. Now the thing is that this is not going to show up right away on the HTML code because that was exported, and but it will show up if I try it right in the app here. So you can see on the right hand side, if you remember, this is where the game plays out. So again, I'm going to choose my pronoun, and then I get a little bit of an introduction. The image, if you remember seeing it, actually, you know what? Let me just show you this here. Oh. So let's go back to the Lich King. And one of the things with exporting it is you do have up on the right hand side restart save theme. So one thing to think about when you do this and you're choosing colors and things is that your player can actually choose between the dark theme and the light theme, and you want to make sure that things look good. So in the end, I wouldn't actually go through this and change all the colors. What I would do is I would get somebody who actually understands what kind of colors to use and have them do it, because I have no idea what to put there. That is not my strength. So I'm going to restart, which is going to bring it to the beginning, and just so I can show you. Oh, actually, that is what I wanted to show you. Okay, so let me go back. Hold on. I'm going to restart, and I'm going to do that. So here you can see the image, but on the ink, and for some reason that just flipped out. So I'm just going to put this back. Oops, that's the wrong one. I have too many things open here. That's what the problem is. There we go. Nope. There, hold on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close all of that. There. And oh, interesting. So OBS doesn't want to show you this anymore. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you something interesting to look at while I figure this out here. Let's go to... Oh, there we go. Okay. I was just calling it something strange. Okay, so here we are back at the Inkle the Inkle game. So you can see here where it says image and then images /him. That's actually telling it to look in the folder images and to put, and that way I know that's where the image is going to be. And then in the actual game, it looks like that. And then so it does the app where you write the game doesn't actually show you the pictures. So now if I go to, I'm gonna have it by the map. Actually, you know what? Just for fun, on here, I am going to say no to the map. You don't need the map, but some of the other items would be helpful. So I have a wide assortment of items. So I'm going to check my inventory, and so on here now you can see it says a rucksack and 100 gold, but there's no map, so you do not have the map. So one of the things I'm going to actually have it is that during the game when you're traveling, every once in a while you have an option to go back to Bailey's. If you don't have the map, it's going to be much harder to go back to Bailey's. I'm not sure if I'm going to, maybe I'll make it so that you actually have to figure out how to get room to room, or I'll have it that it'll be a roll. So you'll roll 1 to 20 if you get 15 and over, then, or 15 and under rather, then you've made it out. But if you get 15 and over, then you're stuck. And then you can go back to Bailey's and you'll have the option of buying the map, but you also have the option of buying all the other stuff, because the way that I've made this is that if you do buy the map, you only have enough gold left over to buy a basic sword and very basic armor. So if you want like the full plate armor, then you'd have to actually go back to Bailey's after you found gold during your quest. So here, Now you can see it says check or switch your weapons, so that makes a lot more sense. So now I know if I want to switch my weapon. So let's go back to return to the quest. Yeah, get some weapons. I'm going to say buy a sword, and then armor. I'm going to say buy a chainmail, and then the only tools I have right now that you can get from Bailey's is a set of lockpick tools, which are actually pretty handy because you can come up to a lot of locked doors. So a lot of the doors in my game actually sometimes when you play it they're locked, sometimes when you play it they're not locked. So it's I have it as a percentage roll. And so I'm going to buy the lockpick tools because if you just try to smash a door down, there's a possibility that you've made too much noise, and then all the creatures that are in all the other rooms just descend upon you, and then the game's over because you're overwhelmed. So having the lockpick tools is kind of good. So and so that's all that he has. So now I'm going to check the inventory. So now it's going to say that I'm armed with my Fist of Fury. I'm wearing the hefty wool sweater, and I can check or switch weapons. So if I do that, then I can see switch weapons. Oh, okay, so now it goes right to it's going to ask me to switch weapons again. So that's kind of annoying. So you know what, I'm going to think about that, of what I can do to make that a little bit more smooth. But switch weapons, use the sword. And actually, you know what, I think I know what I can do there. So check or switch armor. It says the hefty wool sweater nicked by your dad is pretty nifty. I have a chainmail. I'm going to switch my armor, and I'm going to put on the chainmail. And then if I check or use my magic tools and items, I can see that I've got lockpicking tools. You can't actually use the lockpicking tools. It doesn't give you an option to use them unless you're at a locked door. Other items, like if you find a healing potion, or there's an antidote for poison, and a remove curse scroll. If you find those things, you can actually use them anytime, even if you're not cursed, even if you're not poisoned, even if you have full health, you can still use it. But then, you know, as the writer, I mock the player just a little bit because, you know, you clearly don't need it and you've just wasted it. So, you know, it's I think it's pretty deserving there. So here we go. Look at all your items again. I'm going to look at all the items again, and then I can return to the quest, but actually I want to switch that. So now, right now we have it as check or switch your weapons, and then it goes to weapons check. So if you go to weapons check, which is right here, it tells you what weapons you have, and then it gives you the option to switch weapons. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away the option to switch weapons here. I'm going to take these options, I'm going to take them away, and now I've got a whole bunch of errors, but I can fix that. And then over where I had the option to switch weapons, I'm going to take all of this, and instead of that, going inventory choices, interesting. You know what? I think I'm going to leave that there and see what happens here. So I'm going to take all of this, and I'm going to move this. So actually I'm going to copy it, delete that there. I have a whole bunch more errors I'm not going to worry about right now. And then I'm going to go up to my weapons check, and I'm going to paste all of this here. And what I'm going to do now is where it says weapon switch, instead of having that as a knot, remember knots are sections of the code and they are marked off with the equal signs. I'm actually going to have it as 2 forward slashes, which makes that a comment. And that way I remember that from there below, that is the code for switching your weapons. And you can see on the right hand side, I've totally confused it. But it looks like there's only 2 errors, so let's see. Oh, because the weapon switch, because I got rid of that, I actually don't need to have that anymore. So I'm going to get rid of that. No more switch weapons. And here, no more switch weapons. Okay. So let's see what happens now. So I'm going to reset this. So if I use the double arrows, it resets, goes back here. I'm going to quickly go through the game to get to where I just was. And I always have to read it too, because for some reason I keep on clicking the I'm celebrating, just not in the mood to dress up, and then I quit the game. And I'm like, oh, well, what am I doing? But I didn't want the top. If there's two choices, I didn't want the top one to always be the good choice, because then it makes it pretty obvious, what to do. So you're tired of. Okay, so I'm not. I'm not gonna buy the map. I'm going to check my inventory. So I have nothing right now. So rucksack, 100 gold. I got my fists. I've got my wool sweater. Check or switch your weapons. It says your weapons, obviously your hands and feet. So and it says it no matter what, but I wanted it to be something that if you didn't have any weapons underneath, it felt like a joke. But if you had weapons underneath, it still made sense. So maybe I always have that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to return to the quest. I'm going to buy the weapon. I'm going to get the sword for 20 gold. And now I'm going to check my inventory. Now let's see if what I just did worked. So you can see now there's 80 gold. So that variable has worked. I'm going to check or switch. Did I spell switch wrong? Oh, I did too. Look at that. So let's fix that. Where is it? So armor switch up at the top here. Check or switch. There, that's better. And always save your work as you go too, because ink can be a little bit buggy sometimes. So it can't suddenly crash. If you were tuned in last week, you might remember that everything crashed, and then when I came back online, I forgot to hit mute on my sound. So you, unfortunately, if you did watch it, thank you very much. But probably wasn't super interesting. Just basically, maybe it was interesting. I find all this interesting. So you never know. You might as well. I should make that judgment. Okay, so you're wearing the hefty wool sweater. Check your weapon. So now if I check or switch weapons, it should give me the option for the sword. So your weapons, obviously your hands and feet. You have a sword. Use the sword. So there we go. Perfect. Now I can use the sword. And now if I go to check or switch weapons, check or switch armor, turn to quest, check your magic items and tools, it should actually give me an option to check what I'm carrying again. And I noticed that it doesn't, so we need to put that in there. So first what I need to remember is what the knot is called. And the knot is called equipment inventory. So down under here, armor check, switch armor. Okay, weapon switch. Okay, so it just goes to inventory choices, which are here. So instead of going to inventory choices, I'm actually going to have it go to, I got to change a lot, equipment inventory. Right. So let's change all of these. And if I was a little bit more thinking, I probably should have changed one and then made sure it worked and then changed the rest. So now you can see it went back to here. So right back to what you're carrying. So if I go check or switch your weapons, use the sword, check or switch your weapons, check or switch your armor. So let's say I want to give it the option to use my hands and feet, because you have hands and feet. So what I could do for that is I can take so it's exactly the same thing as everything else. So I can take actually, why don't I do this sort of from the beginning? So if I use the squiggly open bracket that I can never remember what it's called, then that's going to tell the program that I am using an if or option, and then I'm going to go to the next line, and then I tab in, and this just makes it easier to read. If you don't tab in, it still works. It just makes it easier to read. So to let the game know that you're creating that if, I need to tell what variable we're looking at. So, and actually we're not really looking at a variable for this one, because now that I think about it, because you always have your hands and feet. It's whether or not your hands or feet are if you're using them or not. So what I think I would do is, to make that really simple, is go to the beginning, like your first open file where you have all of your variables. So the variables I have for weapons is where I'm going to put it, or items rather, is where I'm going to put it. And what I did during the week too is, you'll notice I made them all alphabetical so that it actually just makes it easier to find. So I'm going to do this too. So I'm going to call this hands. So A, B, C, D, G, H, which is going to be right here. And you notice how I do the alphabet out loud when I'm trying to figure out where things are. We learned that in library school. It's a very good thing to do. So variable A underscore hands is what I'm going to call the is what I'm going to call this variable. And one of the reasons why I put in that A underscore is that if I ever wanted to do a second one, I could call it B hands, C hands, or something like that. But so I'm going to say equal to 0, and I'm using this in the terms of 0 is off, 1 is on. So 0 means you're not using your hands. 1 means you are using your hands. I could even have it a third option if I really wanted to do this in the game, where hands equals 3 means maybe one of the hands got chopped off or something, and you could can't, so then you can't use the weapons. You have to rely on magic or something. So you could there's just lots you can do with this, which is really cool. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to inventory. So now the variable that I'm going to be using is that A hands, and you'll notice that as I'm typing it, let me show you again. As I'm typing it, it shows up down here. So I can say, oh, there it is. So that way, if you want to make sure you've used the right variable, because you can't remember the variable exactly, you can do that to figure it out. So if A hands is greater than, actually I'm going to say great if it's less than 1, then the then command is kind of the colon. So basically what I'm thinking is, if you use the sword, then you're not using your hands anymore. So in that case, if I use the tilde, which changes variables, A underscore hands, and then I'm going to say equals 1. So that means you're no longer using your hands. And I'm actually going to put this in to all of my anything that you switch. So there we go, any kind of weapon, and I was going to change it to hands. So there, oops. So the only time that I want the option for hands to show up is actually if hands is equal to 1. So you can't do an equals to when you're doing these variables. So I can say if it's greater than 0. So that means if it's 1 or over, then I'm going to give it the option to and you want to use the plus instead of the asterisk, because plus is a sticky choice. So that means when you have things like use the sword, check or switch your weapons, they're always going to show up. If you use the asterisk, then they can do it once and then it's gone forever, which is handy too, but just not in this scenario. Then close bracket is going to make it disappear when it goes on to the next screen. So I'm going to say use your hands and feet. And then I want to make sure that I change all of this. So I'm actually going to copy and paste this part because it just makes it faster, and it's pretty much the same. So A hands is going to be, and you'll notice I just put a space between the tilde and the variable name. You don't have to. I just do that for consistency, and it makes it easier to read. So I'm going to say if A hands, so is equal to 1. Then the damage, or if you use your hands and feet, then I'm going to say A hands, is equal to 0 now. So now you're using your hands. So the damage is going to be set. So I'm actually going to have it that damage is equal to to 0, because you don't get any bonuses for using your hands. But I might actually make it so that when you're in the game, maybe your weapon breaks or something, and then you have to use your hands. You don't have a choice. Okay, so equipment inventory. That's where it's going to go back to, and then you have to close that if or statement with the squiggly bracket. So there we go. So that should work. So let's see. So there it showed up. Use your hands and feet. Use the sword. Okay, so sword. Because sword is greater than 0. But because you own the sword, it's always gonna show up there. And you can see that all these choices might get really lengthy if you wind up. If you wind up always having them there. So if you didn't want the choice to be there for the thing that you're using, again you could do another variable. So if I wanted to, for example, I could go to Lich King, and I don't think I'm going to do this for everything right now because, to be honest, I don't think that's a big deal. And but I can go variable sword use equals 0. So now, if I go to equipment and I go to sword, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do an if or statement within an if or statement. So what we're saying here is if the sword is greater than 0, then we are now going to check with another squiggly open bracket, and I'm going to say if sword, and there it is, sword use is greater than 0, then I'm gonna it's greater than 0, so it means that you have it. Then I don't really want it to do anything, so I think I'm just going to have it go to the equipment inventory, and then I'm gonna put the close bracket in there, but not there. So actually what I want is, now I have to say if the sword use is greater than 0, it's going to go back to equipment inventory. But if it's not greater than 0, if it's 0, then what I want is the minus sign else, telling it that there is a choice here, and then I have to close that up. Okay, so I think that should work. Okay, let's see. That might be getting a little bit too involved even for me here. So I'm gonna go. If I use the single arrow back, it just goes back one choice. So now I'm armed again with. So I'm armed with the sword. So let's go back to hands and feet. So now check or switch your weapons. So I have the hands and feet and a sword. I can use the sword. It's not going to tell me about my hands and feet because that's what I'm using. So now, if I say use the sword, it goes back to you are carrying. It tells me that I'm now armed with the sword. Check or switch your weapons. Check or switch your armor. So here I'm going to check or switch my weapons and see what it says. I use my hands and feet, and it's still saying use the sword. Okay, so clearly what I just did didn't work. Okay, so if I say use my hands and feet, I'm going to go back to you're armed with sword. Oh, the reason why it says I'm armed with sword is because whatever it shows here is actually with the variable a_weapon. So I need to add that to the hands and feet. So use your hands and feet. After I tell it to change the variable to make the damage 0, I'm now going to tell it that so tilde a_weapon is now equal to hands and feet. There. So now you can see that it just, you were armed with hands and feet. And actually, because it's more funny. Fist of Fury. And obviously your feet if you stretch first. Oops. There we go. Okay, so that works. So let's see. So let's look at this sword. So the hands and feet one works. Actually, what I can do is to do the sword one exactly the way that it did that. I think what I did was I just tried to make the sword one way too complicated, and I didn't need to. So sword is greater than 0. So it means that you have the sword. So if you buy the sword variable becomes 1. So if you buy the sword, it is going to. So I'm actually going to get rid of this, and I'm going to sort of copy what I did with the hands and feet. It's going to say use your sword. Use your sword. Weapon sword. A hands equals 1. So the trouble with this, which I'm realizing, is... So if I do this, because the same way I did hands is so if you use the sword, if I change the variable of sword, then it won't be in the inventory later on if you decide to go, say, from the hammer to the sword. So actually that won't work. So no matter what, okay, so if you buy the sword, it's going to be 0. If you use the sword, then it's going to change a weapon name to sword. Then it's going to change the hands variable to 1 so that the hands doesn't show up again because you haven't bought hands, so that doesn't matter. And A damage equals A damage plus 2. And equipment inventory. Okay. I'm realizing, so I got too many of these here now. So there we go. So you know what, it's I think that takes a lot of thought to sort of work on that part, and that's not really what I wanted to do today. So I'm gonna think about that later on for another time, and I'm gonna move on to something else here, because what I wanted to show you that I've been trying to show you for like the last half an hour, and I've only got to 4:30 today, another 25 minutes, is if I go. And I just realized I switched my screen, but I haven't switched your screen yet. So let me switch your screen back to here, and I'm going to actually take off. I'm going to leave that on there. Okay, so here I'm going to continue. I am going to go adventuring for real, and I'm going to buy the map because I want to show you how the map works, because I think this is pretty cool what I've done here. I'm going to buy so I've got 50 gold left, so I'm going to buy the sword, and I'm going to buy the padded armor, because that's really all I can do. I can't afford, so if I try to buy something else, if I go to tools, for example, then when you notice that all this up here, is staying, so I notice I'm going to actually fix that. So if I say, I want to buy a set of lockpick tools, say you don't have the gold, and it won't let me buy it, and then I don't have the option to try again. Is the thing. So if you don't have the gold, it's not a good idea to try it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to before I go on down another tangent, let me show you the map. Okay, so let's go check our inventory. We can see I'm still only using my fists, and I'm still only using the wool sweater, so I'm going to check my weapons. I'm going to switch weapons. I'm going to use the sword. I'm going to check my armor. And I'm going to switch the armor. Remember, even though we changed it on the other program, this is exported HTML from the old one, so that's why it's not showing up on here. I'm going to put on the padded armor. And now it says I'm wearing armor, I have a sword. I used to have it that you could actually check your your armor class, which is like D&D, or check your health. I decided not to have that anymore. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 3 levels of health, and so if you check your health, it's going to say say how you're feeling instead of a number, so you're not sure exactly. And instead of it, when you're fighting a creature, instead of it saying it does 4 damage, it's gonna it's gonna be a little more better descriptive, so that it feels more like a story instead of feeling like a game, even though it is a game really. So all of this, so now I can return to the quest, and oops, and I'm going to say no tools right now, which is going to give me the option to be on my way. So here we go. So again, I've got the graphic here, and then, the story. Finished at Bailey's and not at all interested in the festival, you take to the road leading to the dungeon rumored as the home of the Lich King. You suspect that whatever now lies in those dark corridors is cursed and more vile than the Lich ever were. While many pretended to be brave during the festival celebrations, none have dared seek out the Lich magic. Until today. You climb down the cracked stone steps, avoiding the tree roots that have grown into them, pulling your cloak tighter around you to ward off the dropping temperatures. You heft your sword and take courage in your years of training. You pound your chest, feeling the strength of padded armor. So if you hadn't actually switched, then it would have been, you heft your fists of fury, and it would have been, you pound your chest, feeling the strength of the wool sweater your dad knit you. So, it adds a little bit of humor to it if you do that. So there we go, continue. It's shadowy inside the dungeon, but torches that line the hallway in front of you still burn from the Lich magic. You sense the danger within. Inside the dungeon it's shadowy, but torches that line the hallway in front of you still burn from Lich magic. You sense the danger within. There is a door to your south and a long corridor ahead that bends to the right. So what I wanted to show you is right now it still says check stats and supplies. I don't know that I'm going to keep it at stats because, again, I don't know that I want you really knowing exactly how hard you are to hit or how much health you have. I was thinking giving the player a feeling instead of a point, but I don't know. Maybe I should leave it as points. So I can click on stats, and then it goes to here. So it tells me what I'm carrying: a rucksack, map, no gold. I'm armed with a sword. I'm wearing padded armor. I can check weapons, armor, magic items and tools, return to the quest. But what's really cool is I can, I have to go to the next room, because in the beginning I don't give an option to look at the map because you're right at the beginning. So now I can look at the map. So if I look at the map, it gives me this map here. So I drew this map using a program called Incarnate, and it's a map making tool that is online, so it can be used on any system because it's all web browser based. And if you're curious about it, there's a tutorial on the Richmond Public Library's YouTube channel, and there is also a tutorial on the Richmond Public Library's Niche Academy page as well. So you can find out how to use that. So it gives you the full map, the one that Bailey gave you. And then if you scroll down, it gives you a little bit more of a close-up of the room that you're looking at. And right now I have this little thing that says you are here, and then I kind of thought about it afterwards, and I might actually take that out because obviously you're in that room, that's why it's showing you there, and it also says you appear to be here. And you can see by the shape of the room, and you can kind of match it up to the map. So, but I was kind of thinking about this afterwards, and I think if it says you are here, because I was going to always put it on the top left-hand side, but then it's going to make people think that you've always come in through the top left-hand side, and what if you come through the other door, and that might be confusing, so I'm actually going to change that. But these are the maps, and so every time you go into a different room, you get a close-up, and then it shows you what it looks like inside. So now I'm going to click Continue, and you have the choice. Take the exit door in the east, return to the previous room, take the armor and put it on, check stats, look at maps. So I'm gonna take the armor just because I want to show you how this works. Whew, I got lucky. You put on the armor, and although at first it feels too loose a fit, the plates magically conform to your physique. You feel powerful. Your AC is now 14. So that's what, I don't know that I need to have your AC is now 14. Obviously, you have magical armor that's making it harder to hit, and I think it's cooler to just have the text. But I'm going to think a little bit more about that. Maybe by next week I'll have decided that. So now if I check stats and supplies, where it says armor, you are wearing magical plated armor. So I don't have, when you say check your armor, I don't have something that says magical plated armor. So I think actually I should add that to it, because if you switch armor, because I don't know why you would want to go from magical plated armor to padded armor, but you never know, right? So at least give the player that option to do that. I might actually have it that you go into a room and maybe there's you notice that floor tiles are weight sensitive. So if you have the padded armor on your lighter, you can get over the floor tiles and it's not a problem. But if you have the plate armor on, the floor tiles will go down, and then maybe the floor raises and the ceiling starts to go down or something like that. So there's all sorts of things that you can do for things like that. So let's go back to our code, and there we go. Okay, there's the code. So what I'm going to do first is, I always like to do things as I'm thinking about it. So here in the equipment inventory, and I haven't saved for a while, so I'm actually going to save it, because as I said, if Sunlight crashes and you've done a lot of work and you've put in a whole bunch of things, especially if you've done some writing and you've written some of the best things that you could possibly think to write, that's always when your computer is going to crash. And it's always when you're going to lose it, and you're never going to write it the same way again, and it's going to be very, very disappointing. Okay. And I also suggest staying hydrated with water as you are writing, because if you're dehydrated, there's a perfect way to stop yourself from having any kind of inspiration. Okay, so when you go to check your armor, here's the armor check. So right now you have padded armor, chain armor, or plate armor. So if you look in the variables, and I go to item variables, which is just up here, item variable, I should have, I'm trying to think of what variable I gave to the magical armor. Okay, so if you get cursed, I have variable curse. Healing, lockpick, monster, poisoned. Okay, so if I can't find it, what I can look for is I can go to the room. So I know that one particular, because I wrote this, I don't have to look it up. If I go to room 2, oh no, room 1, maybe I do have to look it up. I can look at where I have the armor, so good armor, and so your AC is now AC. 8 armor equals magical plated armor. Oh, you know what? I didn't actually give it a variable. So, because I hadn't gotten that much into it. So actually I'm going to give it a variable right now. So, okay, that explains why I couldn't find it. So, to make things easy for me, well, items to buy, and you can't really buy the magical plated armor. So I'm going to put this in items, and I'm going to put it under M. So there we go. So I'm going to put variable, VAR, magical underscore armor, and starting off at 0 because you don't have it. So then you're going to go to equipment inventory, and it's exactly the same as all of these. And the other thing I have now too is if you switch armor, instead of it just being like, you have a base armor of 10 and then it gives you +2, +3, +4, I actually have it that if you put on the plate armor, you have 12. If you put on the chainmail, you have 14. And I did it that way because otherwise what I realized you could do is you could put on the padded armor and get that +2, and then take off the padded armor, and then later on put it on again, get another +2, another +2, another +2, and it just made it easier rather than trying to remember all the time, where you are at, with the AC. So just giving it just one solid variable number just made it a little bit easier. Okay, so we are going to so magic items and tools, armor check. So we want to check to see if we have the magical armor. So the way we're going to do that, because it works exactly the same way as all the others, is magical armor. If it's greater than 0, which means if it's 1 or over, then it means you have it. So magical plate armor. Okay. And then if you want to switch armor, so again, I need to change this too, because for the same reason that we switched the weapons, because there's too many things if you're if you have it that you can check your armor, and then people are like, well, I want to switch my armor. I don't know where to go now. And then they get frustrated, and then the game's not fun. So I'm going to take the armor switch portion. I'm going to delete it from here. And then I'm going to put it underneath the armor check. But again, I'm going to take that knot that I had created called armor switch, and I'm going to turn it into a comment. And armor switch, and I don't need to have this here anymore because I already have the hefty wool sweater up here. So now I also want to have it. So the other thing I have too here is that if your armor class is greater than 10, so this is also why I made sure to just to say armor class equal to 14. Plate armor and chainmail armor are exactly the same. 16, chain armor 14, padded armor 12. So 10 is the wool sweater. So if you or nothing, because let's face it, the wool sweater, it's for style. It's not for safety. So if you have armor class is over 10, then it gives you the option of putting on the wool sweater again. But I'm also going to have it now that if magical armor is greater than 0, so it means you have it, then put on the magical armor. And then your armor name is going to be magical plate armor, and your AC is actually going to be 18, which makes it really hard to hit you. But in that one part of the game too, you actually have an option of it finding it, and it's a 50-50 chance of it being magical and it being cursed. And if it's cursed, it's actually your armor class goes down to 8. So, or actually goes down to because I gave it a -2 for curse, and I think actually I might leave it at that. I think cursed is always just going to be -2, so that way if you because it's plate armor, so I think if it's cursed, maybe I'll have it go down to 16. But then having cursed armor is actually still better than having padded armor. That's ridiculous. I think cursed armor should be even worse than having I think the wool sweater should be better than the cursed armor. So magical armor is greater than 0. Put on the magical armor. Magical plate armor class is equal to 18. Go back to equipment inventory. Save what you've done so far. So the other thing I wanted to have this too is, and let me just sort of show you where we just were in the game. It is here. I wanted to have it so that if you wound up with the cursed armor, that you can't just take it off and then put on something else because it's cursed. You need to find the remove curse scroll to get rid of the cursed armor. So the way to do that is going back here. If in my first file where I have all my variables, I have a variable called a_curse. So if it's 0, then it's off. You're not cursed. If it's more than 0, then you're cursed. I might even have it that you can get multiple curses. Maybe. Okay, let's get a little too complicated for right now. Let's just stick with what I was doing. So what I want to make sure is that if you are looking at equipment inventory and you go to the armor switch, then you don't want them to be able to switch the armor if they are cursed. So this is what we're going to do is inside of the, because you still want them to know that they have it. Well, mind you, that's only armor switch, right? So here we have padded armor. This tells them. Oh, I still have this here, which I don't want. Oh, I might have deleted the wrong thing. No, padded armor is greater than 0. Put on the padded armor. Oh, I didn't delete this. Here. Okay, so I need to delete this. Okay. Okay, so let's just make sure I did that right, because now I'm a little worried that I deleted the wrong thing, so it's going too fast here. Okay, so weapon switch. Armor check. So your armor, here's checking the armor. This is going to tell you what armor you have. And then armor switch. Okay, now I got that right. Okay, so armor switch. What I should be able to do in a perfect world is tell it, using my if-or statement with the squiggly open bracket that I don't know what it's called. I'm going to go minus sign, and then I'm going to say a underscore curse. So if curse is greater than 0, so that means if you are cursed. So if it's a 1, for example, then it's going to be you are cursed and cannot change your armor. And actually that's not an option. And then I'm going to have it go back to, so minus sign greater than sign looks like an arrow, so telling it to go to equipment inventory. But if you are not cursed, minus sign else, colon, then I wanted to do all of these things. And then at the bottom of all these things, I should be able to close the if-or statement with the squiggly brackets that I don't know what they're called. And okay, that should, I got an error here. Divert not found, armor switch. Oh, right, because I took out armor switch. So here I'm going to say switch armor. Let's take that out. Okay, so now no issues. Okay, so now that should work. That should work so that if you, so let's just see here, return to the quest, check my inventory, check or switch your armor. Ooh, nope. Okay, so something is tripping it up here. So let's see if I can figure this out in 7 minutes. Okay, so I got open, close, and you'll see. I don't know if you can see this on Twitch, but when I put the asterisk beside the open squiggly bracket, the bottom one that's connected to actually has a circle around it, so I can see that on line 193, that's where it closes, and this is where it opens. So I can also do that on all of these, and I can see. So if curse is greater than 0. Otherwise, it's going to do all of these other things. Because the other thing that I could do, that I know will work for sure, is I can put the curse statement right inside of here. And since I know that works, I'm just gonna do it. And then sometimes when I learn things later on, I come back and I fix things. So here, so what I'm gonna say is, so it's gonna check for padded armor. What I'm going to have it do now is squiggly, check for a curse, and see if it is greater than 0. If so, if it's greater than 0, you are cursed and cannot put on any other armor. Cannot put on your padded armor. Otherwise, if I say you can't put on your armor, and I do that in all of them, I'm just going to have a bunch of lines saying that. And but I say you can't put on your padded armor, then I do that in the other one. Say you cannot put on your chain armor, you cannot put on your plate armor. You're cursed, you cannot put on your padded armor. And then if not, and I also need to have it turn back to equipment inventory. Otherwise, oh, you know what I just thought of? Okay, I'm actually gonna undo a bunch of stuff, and I'm just gonna see if this other thing works. So I just thought of something that might actually work, so I don't have to do that. Okay. So there we go. Let's put. Oops. Did I do too much of that? What just happened there? There we go. Okay. So I'm actually kind of wondering, your cursed and cannot change your armor, and then I'm gonna have it continue. Let's see what happens. Right now 126. Oh, 126. No, that's not gonna work. Okay. So that's too bad. Okay, so let's get rid of all that. Okay, so basically I gotta put the curse check into all of those. So let me just get rid of that. Undo is really fantastic. Oops. Sometimes I wish there was an undo for real life. There we go. Okay, so we're at 427. And that's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fix this up so that it checks for the curse when you're trying to change your armor, so that you can't just change your armor. And if you are interested in following along with more, we'll be doing this Thursday again next week. So I hope you tune in, and I hope that you enjoyed learning how to program with Ink. It's a pretty fun program. Have a great day.